Hello and welcome to episode 84 of the Give Me a Crown podcast. My name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet, and today is, I think, the 11th of June 2018. It's the Queen's birthday long weekend here in Australia, or in parts of Australia. I don't think the whole of Australia is having it this weekend, but at least we are here in New South Wales. I'm in the Central Tablelands in the Central West, and it's a nice wintry, fairly warm day out here. There's been a bit of a long gap between podcast episodes again. My knitting hasn't been progressing as fast as I would like, but I have a little bit to show you, and I also have some reporting on the Canberra Wool Expo that I went to about 3 weeks ago. So before I get into my knitting, I have a quick drawing to do for a giveaway. I've got a pattern from Wendy Cudd to give away, and I've popped the entries into a hat. So they're in there, and shaking it around. And the winner is Bird Knit. So congratulations, Bird Knit. If you could send me a private message on Ravelry and let me know that you've seen this episode, I'll get you in touch with Wendy Cudd and you can choose one of her patterns. So thank you very much, Wendy, for donating a copy of one of your patterns to the podcast. I have one finished object which has come and gone, and I'll pop a photo of it here. This hat is the Kit Kat hat by Andre Sunitz. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and the reason that I knit it was that my niece spotted an eyelash yarn version of a Kit Kat hat at the Canberra Wool Expo, and unfortunately it was too big for her, so I got the request to knit her one. I used the Bendigo Woolen Mills Luxury 10-ply base, and then I duplicate stitched the pink ears on using, I think it was a Modavera Spotlight 8-ply yarn that I had in my stash. So it was a very quick knit, very easy pattern to follow, and I was a little bit unsure about the total height of the hat. I had measured my niece's head sort of circumference wise, but not the height of it, and but I figured that she can roll up the ribbing if she needed to. But I've been sent some photos and it seems to fit perfectly, so I'm very happy with that. My next finished object is not knitting, but it's a little bit of cross stitch, and I haven't done any cross stitch since I was probably in my early teens. I used to do a fair bit of it, and I had some boxes of DMC threads left over from all those years ago, and I've been wanting to do a little bit of a decoration for my sewing studio. So I had a look in the library and I picked out the Crafty Cat Workbasket book by Julie Hasler. And it's a bunch of different cat motifs that can be put onto various things, cushions and cross stitches and various things. And there's a lot of inspiration in here, but I decided to, there's one here that I almost did. So these three little cats down the bottom, I thought about maybe doing one of those, but then I spotted this table runner and it's got lots of little cats on it, but I thought that I could just pick out one of those cats and make it up. So this is my finished cross stitch. I finished it a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't actually finish up the backing until last night. I hadn't done that for a long time. Not sure I've ever actually done this technique either, but I should have ironed my felt just with a gentle iron before I did this, because it's very wrinkly, but it's on the back, so it doesn't really matter. But that's my little kitty cat. I would love to have a little kitty cat of my own, but that's the closest I'll get for now. But I think it's going to be a great addition to my sewing studio. It just makes me happy looking at the little guy, and I think it's super cute. So I think not having too much of a knitting mojo at the moment, doing some other types of crafting is still keeping me entertained, and hopefully my knitting mojo returns pretty soon. For works in progress, I do have a bit of knitting, but not a great deal. So I've got a couple of squares on my sock yarn blanket. This gorgeous sort of dusty rose kind of colour is an Atelier yarn mini that a friend of mine gave me, and then this speckled one here is a Smudged Yarns mini from a pack that I got a little while ago. And I think I've got one more square on this row, then one more short row and one long row, and then I think I'll call it a day. And well, I have to finish up all the yarn tails because there are yarn tails all over it. So that's gonna take a long time to sort out, but I'll do it. It's actually kind of meditative, I find, to be weaving in yarn tails, but haven't really felt that need to do that just yet, so hopefully soon. My next work in progress are my Felici socks. There's not a huge amount happening with these, but I've made a little bit of progress. I think I've knit maybe 3 more stripes on these since I last spoke to you. So I need to do a bit more on those and just try to make them happen. And my final work in progress is my butternut snap jumper. And that's as far as I've got. I think last time I had just split for the sleeves, and I've now done maybe 1.5 inches past that point. So I've got to get a wriggle on if I want to get this ready in time for Bendigo. So I think part of the reason why my knitting mojo is sort of off somewhere else is because the projects that I'm working on at the moment are pretty much stockinette. They also, the socks and this jumper both need me to think about sizing, because with the socks I'm knitting them long, so I've been measuring my calf and all that kind of stuff and having to think about where I put my increases, and with this jumper I'm having to think about how I want to shape the body and do the calculations for the sleeve if I decide to do those next. And I'm just having to think a lot, and I've got a lot of other things that I'm sort of thinking about at the moment, so having to put thought into my crafts is not something that I'm really enjoying at the moment. I think I need to perhaps cast on somebody else's pattern and enjoy the fact that somebody else has done the thinking for me, and hopefully that will get me going again. But I want to get this done before Bendigo, and I'm not sure how to push myself through this little slump, but I will try. I'll figure it out. Maybe I just need to accept that this isn't going to be ready in time. I've got enough knitwear that I think I'm going to be representing the knitting well enough if I don't have it done. Maybe I just... but I love the colour. Anyway, so that's part of the reason why... well, that is the reason why my knitting just isn't really happening at the moment. But the most exciting thing was that 3 weeks ago I went to the Canberra Wool Expo, which seems to be a once in a year kind of event, and I'd only just been to my first ever fibre event. I think it was about a week or two before, and I was really keen to see what Canberra had to offer, and it was amazing. It was incredible, and I definitely recommend you check it out if you are around Canberra next year. It was held at the old bus depot markets, and so there was a combination of yarn and fibre and all the sort of other types of market stalls. So there was other types of makers, but I didn't really pay too much attention to those, to be honest. There were aprons and food and stuff, but I was there for the yarn, and I got there pretty early to meet up with a friend, and we sort of wandered in before a lot of the crowds had turned up. So we had a very casual start to the day, but as the day sort of wore on, there was a lot more people and the stalls were getting pretty full up. So I had a lovely time wandering around with a friend and just having that chance to talk about yarn together, because I don't have that many people around here that I can do that with. And also just seeing the yarns in person was incredible. There were indie dyers and yarn makers that I've heard of, but I haven't seen their yarns in person. So it was a really good chance to squish the yarn and feel the yarn and see the colours and ponder over things. The first stall that we went to was Three Mums Yarn, and this was the skein that I picked up. I pondered over a lot of their yarn. They had some amazing yarn colours and their bases looked fantastic, and I really wanted to get a cardigan quantity, but I kind of talked myself out of it, which is probably a silly thing to have done, but I ended up getting this, which is a BFL sock, and it's the Peking Purple colourway. And the reason I got this BFL sock was because when I did my sock review recently, I realised just how well my BFL my BFL yarn socks had worn. So I really wanted to get another BFL, and I don't spot BFL too often, so I'm looking forward to knitting this up. I'm pretty sure it will be socks, but it could also be something else, so we'll just have to wait and see. But just gorgeous little speckles of colour in there. And my friend picked up for me this, I'm not going to be able to show it very well, but there's a cute little kitty cat and some stitch markers in there, also from Three Mums Yarn. So that was very, very sweet. And yeah, I might need to think about putting an order with them. I don't think they're going to be in Bendigo, but I might need to pop in an order with them online at some point. My next purchase is going to crinkle, so I'm going to mute the sound here as I show you this. So they were some minis from Fiberwebs. It's a mini skein set, 20 gram minis, and they were kind enough to actually swap out one of the minis from the pack that was not in the sort of colour scheme that I wanted. And those minis are mainly for my blanket, and then for scraps to maybe do some scrappy socks at some point, or figure out something else scrappy to make. But I love the colours, and there were colours that I don't have in my blanket too much of at the moment. I was also given some minis from a friend of mine, and they're also popping into my blanket. The Atelier Yarn mini was one of them, so you'll see some of those as my blanket grows. And my final yarn purchase was these two babies. These are some Tandy Polworth wool, 4-ply in a natural colour, and they're 150 grams each. So 300 grams for a lightweight pullover of some sort is going to be perfectly fine. I haven't picked out the pattern yet. I'm thinking about the folded pullover by Veera Välimäki, but I've already knit one and it's very stockinette, and I think I need to do something a little bit more creative. So I need to do some searching online for some patterns, but I got the chance to feel some of this yarn knitted up into a top and it felt amazing. So I'm looking forward to knitting something out of this. I think it's going to be a very nice addition to my wardrobe, and I love this natural colour. Sort of a grey with just a hint of just sort of a slightly brownish grey, perhaps you'd call it, but perfect for my colour palette. The only other thing that I picked up was some tea from Tea House, and this is a fruit infusion Summer's Garden indulgent berry sweet, and I love my berry and fruity teas, so I'm looking forward to trying this. It's actually been sitting in my yarn bag waiting to do this podcast before I could try it, so I'm sure it's going to be absolutely delicious. They had the little smelling pot so that you could smell the different flavours of tea. Smell flavours? does that work? And this one definitely got my attention. So it wasn't a massive haul, these and the minis, but I knew that I didn't need a whole heap. I have some in my stash that I really need to get onto. And it was a bit of a trial run for Bendigo, because the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show is going to completely blow my mind, considering that Canberra was so amazing, that Bendigo is going to be even more so. And I just need to plan my yardages and my projects before I go to Bendigo. I need to have a think about exactly what I'm knitting, and so that I can pick out the right things for me. I'll obviously get a few random skeins, I'm sure of that, but I also want to plan for projects specifically, so that I'm not just buying everything willy-nilly and then finding it hard to match them up at a later date. One thing that, I haven't been to that many yarn things before in my life. I've only been to 2 in the recent times, and they were the first ones I've ever been to. So some of the stalls didn't have a huge amount of yarn on display, but they had some more yarns behind the counter. So if you are at a yarn event and looking at some yarn and thinking that there's not enough there for a project, ask them. If they might have it behind the counter, or they might be able to arrange it to ship it to you or something like that. It was a lot of fun to talk to the different makers and small businesses and find out more about them, and hearing about businesses that I didn't know existed and all that. So it's definitely got me very, very hyped for going to Bendigo and doing it on an even larger scale. So I had a brilliant time in Canberra. It was great to hang out with people and meet new people. I was on the receiving end of a fangirl moment, which completely blew my mind and didn't really expect that. But it was very sweet and lovely, and so it was great to meet people that I've followed on Instagram and whatnot. So yeah, it was great, a lot of fun, and I'm definitely going to go to Canberra again for the next one next year. I think I spent about 4 hours in the marketplace. I wish I could have spent more. I didn't realise just how much time it takes to look at yarn and wander and chat and all that kind of stuff. And the weather was amazing. It was beautiful blue skies. It wasn't too cold, wasn't too hot, and even just sitting around having coffee and chatting and all that, it was amazing. So I caught up with my brother's family, and my nieces had fun in the animal pen thing, petting zoo kind of thing, and they didn't have any alpacas, which I thought they were meant to have, but they had chickens, so my nieces had a lot of fun chasing the chickens around. And they also picked up some yarn. My older niece picked up her first hand-dyed skein, and I spent that evening hand winding the skein for her. And by the morning she had already knit up a little swatch, and I showed her how to soak the swatch to check for colour fastness and what have you. So I've since sent her another knitting book and some magazines and things, and it's good to see the next generation having fun with their yarn crafts. So definitely recommend Canberra. Bendigo, can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's only just over a month away, and I've got lots of planning to do, and I'm sure I'll podcast before then. So but if you are planning to go to Bendigo, I have set up a thread in the Give Me a Crown Ravelry group, so please pop in there. Let me know if you're going. Let me know if you know of any meetups and all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing there's some kind of things, but I'm a little bit behind on podcast watching at the moment, so I'm not entirely sure who's going, what's going on. I will be pottering around and I expect I will be popping with glee by the time that I walk in the gate and until I leave. I'm going to be there Friday and Saturday, maybe a bit of Sunday, but I'm not too sure yet. And I expect that I'm just going to be wide-eyed and just buzzing on the yarn fumes. So apart from that, I've just been busy, busy doing all sorts of things, mainly for the shop. It's coming up to end of financial year, and decision making on various things and all that kind of stuff. I've been tinkering with my camera a fair bit. So if you're interested in seeing some of the non-yarny pictures, I have set up a new Instagram account, which I will pop in over there. It's Ninikka. And I'm popping up photos of just my wanders and explorations around here, mostly sort of landscapey sunsets and that kind of thing, but I'll sort of see what I can think of to photograph to pop in there over the next little while. My plans for the winter harvest have been pretty much a fail, apart from the herbs and some peas. Nothing seems to want to be growing. It's been relatively warm here compared to the last 2 winters that I've been out here, but I don't think I'm trying to grow the right things in the right climate, so I will just have to be happy with my herbs and then wait for spring, I guess. I think that's pretty much it. It's probably a shorter episode than normal, and I will hopefully get my knitting mojo back again and get some proper progress. Maybe I need to do a couple of small projects. If you have any tips on getting out of a knitting slump, or some patterns that you think that I should tackle that aren't stockinette, then I'd love to know. Please pop by the Ravelry group and pop in a comment there. And yeah, hopefully next time I'll have a little bit more to share with you. But on that note, I hope that you're well and having fun with your crafts, rather than just sort of staring at them and wondering why they're not knitting themselves. I hope that the weather is treating you well, whether it's winter or summer, and I hope that you're having fun. I will see you soon.